This week on the Authentic Media Podcast.
PR and marketing are different, you know? Public relations is a type of marketing, but not all marketing is public relations.
In order to tell your story, you have to know who you are and what story you want to tell. You have to go through the steps of branding, marketing, and then PR.
And I realized that I've formed this really deep-rooted idea that I'm not in control of my own destiny. Starting this business is a total reclamation of that.
What gave you the courage to finally take that step? So when it comes to growing a brand, what is the difference between marketing versus PR? Well, if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur or a creator that's interested in building your own brand, this episode is for you. Today, we're sitting down with my dear friend, India Yarborough, who is a powerhouse in the PR world. She just kicked off her own business herself, her own PR agency, and we're going to dive into that. But first of all, thank you for being here, friend.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited.
So excited we can make this happen. Like you said, it's been months in the making, right?
Yes, it has. I think when I brought this idea to you, you were just about to launch your business. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give you some time. I'm going to give you some time to breathe. And then I said, whenever you get settled, I want to be the first person that you can sit down with and not only share your business, but share your wisdom. And so I just think that you are so gifted in this area. And when we talked about this topic, I said, oh my God, I don't even think I know this. So I love it. But before we dive into that, let's set the foundation. Tell people who you are. Where do you come from?
Totally. So I'm India Yarbrough, obviously. You already said it up top. I am from Mississippi originally, went to college in New Orleans, moved to Topeka about 5.5 years or so ago for a journalism job originally. So, started my career in journalism at the local newspaper here in Topeka, really as the lead economic development and business reporter for the area. And so, did that for a little bit and then had an opportunity to move over to the Greater Topeka Partnership and work there. And so, started out as communications manager, became communications director. And by the time I left there, I was vice president of marketing and communications. So really, what I'm doing now just builds on that past experience so perfectly. And when I think about kind of the, two sides of that aisle there when it comes to communications, having been the journalist, having, been on the reporter side, and then having been on the communication side and the PR side, really trying to help the partnership tell Topeka's story, and all the cool stories coming out of our community. That was just such a powerful experience that has really led me to where I am today. I wouldn't be here, wouldn't be starting my own public relations and communications consulting firm if it weren't for that experience, and I guess just a little bit more background on that business, community has always been really important to me. Storytelling has always been really important to me. And so this allows me to really meld those concepts. I think also, working in communications for the partnership, the team does so much over there, and in the best way. But there are times when folks would reach out to us, nonprofits, local organizations, and say, hey, can you help me get the word out about this? Or, hey, can you help me write this press release? Or, hey, can you do X, Y, Z to help us with this communications element? And to be quite honest with you, we couldn't always take that on, even if we wanted to, know? And so, stepping out in this way with my business really allows me to, I think, help meet a need in the Topeka area for the types of businesses that would show up on our doorstep and ask for that help in the past, And so, public relations, communications consulting is really the goal. And I really do hope to serve small businesses, nonprofits, community-oriented organizations. And, the SBA defines a small business as up to 500 employees. I think a lot of people don't think of that. But 99% of Shawnee County Shawnee County businesses are small businesses. Right. And so the market is there. I think the desire is there to grow communications and start communicating more effectively about what the businesses in our area are doing. And so I hope to do that as Topeka's first true PR firm.
Yes. Okay. Yes. We're going to dive into that as well. As far as like, that
was probably a way longer intro than you intended.
Girl, take up all the time that you need. Okay. Because I already know like this episode's going to be so powerful and intentional, and really helpful for people who are really unclear on what PR is and like actually how to take advantage of it. Yeah. And so one of the things I think I told you right off the bat about your business was I loved how you call, which by the way, her business is called Local Lens PR. And you started to broadcast and market your business as Topeka's only PR agency. And I said, India, that is the most smartest thing you could ever do. But it's interesting because a lot of small businesses, they aren't thinking in that strategy or strategic way when it comes to marketing their business because they probably don't understand or they don't have the PR assistance. And so I want to dive into that about like the name behind your business and then why you decided to kind of like market yourself that way and like being known as like Topeka's only, right? Because like, even though we know there's other organizations and businesses out there that do PR services, it was like you made sure that you're like, I'm going to consistently market myself this way, which I thought was like the most strategic thing you could do.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. That just means the world. I guess to start with the name first, Local Lens PR. Funny enough, I was at a public relations conference a few years ago and I was in one of the sessions and this name Local Lens just like popped into my head. And I'm not even kidding. I, at the time was like, oh, that'd be a cute name for a PR firm 10 years from now. And here I am like 3 years later doing the thing. So it's kind of serendipitous how we have those kind of moments of vision that just occur at completely random times,
Yeah.
But the local and Local Lens PR, I think really denotes just the neighborly approach to how I want to operate as a business owner, really putting community first and really trying to, work with clients who may have never seen themselves as the type of client that would hire a PR firm, And so I think just staying community oriented and community minded and putting local before everything. That was really, really important to me. So I wanted to have that in the name.
That's good.
When it comes to the lens component, I mean, when we think about what a lens is quite literally, it's a curved piece of glass that reflects outward the light pointed at it. And so, I wanted lens in the name because my goal, part of my mission really is to amplify the authentic light shining from every client, because it's really, I mean, it's their story and they are experts at their craft. They just don't always know how to tell their story.
Right.
And so that's where I come in, you know, and so the lens was even so intentional too. I had someone joke recently that when they read my name, Local Lens, they thought I was like an optometrist sort of organization.
I guess I could see that a little bit.
I can kind of see it.
Yes.
I
can see that.
You're like, no. I hope most people, I hope they listen to this and hear what the lens is really about.
Yeah. You're like, we're checking your eyes in some way though, a little bit.
We're providing clarity,
Come on.
in the communication.
Yes.
And I guess that's why the PR on the end is so important, just to bring it full circle.
Yeah.
So,
I love that.
So that's where Local Lens PR kind of came from and was born. And
it's beautiful.
It really seemed to fit. I could not think of anything else better to describe like what I was going after and what I was trying to do with this business, with this agency.
That's so good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And when it comes to really branding myself as Topeka's first public relations firm, that was also so intentional as well because, I have worked with people who have said, Topeka doesn't really have anything like this. Topeka doesn't have a public relations firm.
Right.
And I wanted to say, I'm the first and only, in part because I wanted to differentiate myself from the marketing firms out there.
Yes.
From, people who may be doing some sort of communications work out there.
Right.
Because, and honestly, we're going to dive into this today because, part of the reason I branded myself as that was saying, okay, well, how can I set myself apart from what already exists in Topeka, and there are marketing firms locally doing amazing work. There are some incredible marketing firms, advertising firms, people who are expert communicators doing amazing things in the Topeka area. But there is no true PR firm until now.
Yeah.
And so that's where I wanted to come in and say PR and marketing are different, you know, and that's why I can say I'm the only, because they are different, you know? And so I'm sure we'll get into that, but that's just kind of the, I guess, the basis for why that marketing was so important and how it kind of spun out.
Yeah. Okay. So let's open that door. Mm-hmm. What is the difference? Let's start basic for the people today. Sure. So what is the difference between marketing versus PR?
Yeah. And I'm so glad we're going over this, honestly, because when I started, you know, I would, even after I would explain to people what I was doing, they were like, oh, good, because we need to get our marketing up, you know, or something like that. And I was like, no, okay, but just to be clear, like
that's not what we're doing here.
Right. And so I had to get really specific and really clear, even with myself on like, okay, well, how do I describe the difference, you know? Right. And so the way I think about it is, you know, marketing is much more about promoting a product or service to really inspire action, with that action usually being driving sales, you know? That's what marketing is all about. It's very data driven in a lot of ways. Whereas public relations is really about, I think, communicating more holistically about what your business or organization is doing. Yeah. And it's really, I think, designed to inspire trust, inspire confidence, build your reputation. Right. And so it's more comprehensive in a lot of ways. Because, you know, you can market your product all day and say, hey, we're selling this, it's at this price. Yes. You know, these are the details of the product. Yeah. But unless you're doing public relations and really growing that trust with your audience and your community, I don't think you're going to be able to really market that product as effectively as you could. Right. You know? And so, public relations is about getting your story out there. It's about identifying the unique stories that only you can tell. It's about really, you know, communicating about maybe the innovative things you're doing in your community or the people you employ, you know, the impact you're making. Right. I know a lot of businesses will team up with other local organizations to make a difference, or, you know, we'll donate to these really important causes or have these volunteer days. That's all public relations to a certain extent, you know, and being able to communicate effectively about that on a consistent basis is really what local NPR tries to help people do.
I love this. Okay, so I'm having so much like an epiphany of what you're saying, and like the dots are connecting, because so we recently launched an episode about the difference between branding versus marketing. And I really was happy when you were like, oh my gosh, like, thank you for like talking about that. No, and I was like, oh my God, girl, thank you. Because I was like, I think I surprised myself. You know, like sometimes you surprise yourself. You're like, I didn't know I could like talk about things like that.
I came out of my
I'm
mouth.
like, oh, okay.
I totally hear you.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, the best way I could break it down is that like branding is the identity of who you are, and like really getting clear on this is who I am, right? And then like the marketing is like the action you want people to take, like, you know, telling people to do something. And then when you came to me and said, yeah, but there's also a difference between marketing and PR, I'm like, oh my gosh. And so listening to you talk about it, I'm like, the difference is sharing your story consistently. Yeah. So it's like they all like run together. They really branding, do. Marketing, PR.
They do. What? And I do think, you know, marketing and PR, they're kind of like different sides of the same coin to a certain extent. Whereas branding, I feel like it's that like essential like personality creation that you have to do for your business. Because like we all have a personality, right? Like that's part of our brand. Yeah. Your business has a personality too, right? And so you have to have that brand before you can do any effective PR or marketing.
Talk about it.
You probably are preaching that
all
day.
It, girl. No, I'm gonna let y'all hear from the expert. Just continue to remind the people.
No, totally. Because, you know, when people come to me and want to do work with on a public relations level, I am working from the assumption that they already have a brand to communicate about, you know? So like you were step one, like you were the front door to business development to a certain extent. Like,
wow.
And
that's so good.
That way, but but that's so true. Like you have to have a brand in order to do anything else when it comes to communicating, because otherwise what are you communicating about?
Right. And okay, let's talk about that too. Like, because I think it's interesting when we were doing the Rise and Thrive conference. So for people who don't realize, like India was on the team for the Rise and Thrive conference. Proudly. She, oh my gosh, let me tell you, this girl got me together. Okay. But it's
vice versa too. You did the same for me.
No, but like you definitely were pushing me out of my comfort zone. And there were times when you were asking me questions that I just didn't know the answer to. But it's interesting. And I think I want to bring that up just for an example. So like, you're right. Like for businesses that come to you, you do have the assumption, like, you know who you are, you know what story you want to tell. And it's interesting because a lot of people don't know what story they want to tell. So it's like, I think it's important, like you said, you have to go through the steps of like, okay, branding, marketing, and then PR. But if you could share some background for people, because I know you are working with a lot of organizations and business owners who may not know who they are. So like, kind of talk to me about your process, or like, what questions do you ask? Maybe how can people prepare so by the time they do come to you, like that process is easy?
Yeah. I mean, really what I'm asking off the bat, and I do that initial discovery session free always, because I really want to get to know just who you are as an organization, you know, what are you all about? Are we a good fit? You know, do your goals align with what I can do? You know, so am I the right person to meet that need?
That's good.
But I'm asking them questions about the brand. And that's why it's important for them to already have the brand, right? Because I'm asking, okay, tell me about your organization. Why do you do what you do? What do you do? You know, and how are you already communicating about that in the community, right? So I can get an idea for maybe the efforts that have already been done, whether they're working or not, you know? And so it's helping me get clear on the work they've already done, right? You know, to a certain extent. And so, we're diving deep on values sometimes even. I'm wanting to get to know them on a personal level because, to a certain extent, our business brand is a reflection of our personal brand, 100%. Which I'm sure is something you preach, right?
Yes. They just have to hear it again. They have to hear it again.
From a new voice, right?
You don't like believe something until you hear it like multiple times. But I am happy that you are expressing this, because I think, again, us being on, two different sides of the field, people always say, you guys complement each other. And I'm like, I think we do, but like, I love how the PR piece, like when you speak about it, it's so easy to understand. But I think this is why people have to like hear from your perspective, like down the road, you're going to need a PR agency to get you to where you want to be. So like, let's even get into like the relationships.
Yes.
Okay. Honestly, why are they important?
Yes. I mean, truly, like it's called public relations for a reason, right? Like, like the relationship piece is pivotal. And I think of this, phrase I've heard recently that's goes something along the lines of, trust is built in drips and drops and lost in buckets, So
talk about it, girl. Talk about it.
So, I mean, it's really about taking the time and expending the energy that needs to be spent in order to build that trust with people, you know? And when it comes to kind of how I'm doing that as a business, when the clients I'm working with, nonprofits, small businesses, they already have a lot on their plate, right? And so they have to figure out how to spend their time effectively and strategically. And so the benefit of hiring someone like me to do your communicating is that I am building trust with people who can help tell your story. Like that's what I do all the time. Wow. I mean, having coffee with reporters and stuff like that. And it's truly because I want to get to know them and their backstories and how they made it to Topeka and, what type of stories they like to tell. But then when the time comes for me to pitch a story that maybe one of my clients has, that trust has already been built. And so that's why that relationship piece is so important. And I thought of this kind of analogy, this metaphor, literally earlier today when I was thinking about the difference between marketing and PR and how I was going to communicate that. Doing marketing without an effective public relations strategy is kind of like walking into a dinner party, thinking to yourself, all right, I'm going to make some business deals tonight, but not knowing anybody in the room yet. And immediately trying to pitch yourself and your business and the deals you want to see happen, but never getting to know who you're sitting next to, who you're eating dinner with. And so the public relations piece really gets at, let me get to know who's in this market, who's in this area, who are the storytellers in my community, and how can I get my client stories in front of them, you know, whether that be, traditional news media, like the local TV stations, the local newspaper, or, maybe business magazines, different magazine publications, whether it's lifestyle or something else, or even podcasters. I mean, podcast is such a growing industry, right? And so that's media too. Media is such a broader term than I think people even realize, because it's truly, the television, the radio, the content you consume on your phone, but it is also news media and podcasting and that sort of thing too.
Wow.
So, I am really trying to build those relationships, build trust with those entities, so that I can be a connector. I can be a connector for my clients. And so I think that's why the relationship piece is so important, and why, you have to have both marketing and PR. Because I will say, when it comes down to the difference as well, public relations is a type of marketing. And I think that's why it trips people up so much.
That's good.
But not all marketing is public relations. And right.
That's good.
So let me
one more time. That's one more time.
Totally. So public relations is a type of marketing, but not all marketing is public relations.
That's good.
And the kind of visual analogy I use is that, a square is a rectangle, but not all rectangles are squares. And so it's kind of a similar approach, I guess, in that, it's really, I try to sum it up for people by saying often that, just as you are more than the work you do, your business or organization is more than the product you sell.
Yeah.
And so that is why communicating holistically about what your organization does is so impactful and powerful.
100%.
Because, and I guess to tie it back to the relationship piece too, if you are trying to sell a product, market a product, but no one knows who you are, you're never going to be able to make the sale,
girl.
And so
you're preaching to the choir,
literally. And so, part of it is about, making sure you built that trust with your audience, with your community, with folks you may interact with. And sometimes it's building that trust. I say sometimes, often, it's building that trust before you need to really lean into it,
right?
And so, if you have built that trust over time, when someone comes time to buy something and they're like, well, I don't know if she actually sells that, but let me check in with her because I trust her already. I know that organization already.
Oh my God. So good.
So that's, I guess to tie that all together, that was kind of a long-winded answer. I don't know. What was the question?
Oh my God. I think you answered it. No, that's good. That's so good. Oh my God. So I think you said a lot of really good things, but one of the things that kept sticking out to me was the whole idea with building relationships and why kind of in the front end of this is why creating that trust with your audience is so important, right? So I always tell people over and over that branding essentially is all around building your reputation, right? It's how do you expect people to buy from you if they don't know you or feel like they can't connect with you, they can't relate to you. And I think that kind of goes back to building a relationship, kind of the whole dinner analogy.
Yeah, I was just
why do you think people are going to accept your deal or want to invest in your business if you haven't even introduced yourself, if you come into a room with expectations, it's kind of this weird, I don't know, back and forth where if you don't set the foundation and kind of brand yourself as a trusted expert or someone that is okay, you know what, I've been in this field long enough, you can trust me. And I've worked with X amount of people, you can ask them. And if you ask them, there's testimonials, there's evidence, there's proof that I do know what I'm doing. You can trust me, in this field. But I don't think, India, people realize that the reputation part and the front end is going to carry you in the long end when it comes to PR, when it's time to put yourself out there and be consistent with your message. So kind of talk to me about how does that go hand in hand? When it comes to the trust and the relationships, where does PR come into that?
Yeah, that's such a good question.
That was a long question, but
and honestly, it's kind of making me think of just my time in Topeka, to be honest with you, because I have had the thought multiple times, in launching this business that I've had moments every business owner does where you're gosh, are the clients going to come? If I build it, will they come?
Yeah.
Right. But then I have to keep reminding myself, India, you have been building strategic relationships over the last 5.5 years.
Yes.
And that's all building up to where you are today.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that I knew those relationships would be as important to me as they are now.
Right.
Sometimes you don't know when you're starting to build that relationship where it may go.
Right. Or when you're going to need them later on.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
So,
that's good.
So I really, when you ask that question, I really think about my journey in Topeka, and just having to really put yourself out there, to a certain extent. And to, I guess, tie it back to public relations, like PR is kind of about putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
It's about taking those chances even when you don't want to, trying to communicate effectively, but figuring out what platforms to communicate on.
Yeah.
And again, that requires a certain level of like being seen and being known in the community, and doing it consistently, like I said earlier, over time. Yeah. So that, when people start to think of XYZ, whatever, is semi-related to your business, they think of you, and you were the first brand or business name that pops into their head.
Yeah. That's so good.
So I think that's really important when it comes to just building that trust, building that relationship. I feel like I've said that word so many times.
No, I think it's important though. I think it's important to like continue to put that in front of people's faces, because I think people aren't thinking, especially like as a business owner, when you're first starting your business, the first thing you're thinking about is like making money, right? Like you're not even thinking like down the road, like at least some people aren't thinking, that's like not the first thing in their mind is like, how is this relationship going to be needed in my life? Like, what is this going to do for me later on? But it's like, you kind of have to think like that.
Yeah. And I to be fair too, like I don't always think that entering into a relationship or conversation with someone, you should always have that end, like,
what are you going to do for me?
Right. Like, I don't think you should necessarily have that, like, how are we going to benefit from each other mindset when you enter those conversations. I think you kind of have to lay that to the side and just say, what's the unique value that I see in this person, and let me just get to know that, because that's good. I think that's so important. Like not expecting anything in return necessarily,
like get rid of your expectations.
Yeah, literally get rid of the expectations, like you're saying, because that's where the magic happens. I feel like when we've talked a lot about like perfectionism and like that to the side.
Yeah, letting it go.
Yeah, and like to a certain extent, perfectionism is just this like building of expectation and not knowing whether you're going to meet them. And it to get into my philosophy a little bit, like
let's do it.
I truly think that like to a certain extent, perfectionism is a form of oppression.
Wow.
And I could go deep.
No, let's go there. Let's do it.
That I can point to that.
That's amazing.
Kind of that, above reproach sort of mentality, but on a very local level, when we try to be perfect and we're always, our expectations are so high that we feel like we can never meet them, it kind of keeps us stuck. It keeps us in our own head, in our own, current moment of being, and never allows us to really grow because we're so scared about getting it right and getting it perfect along the way.
And having it to be like a certain way, a certain style.
Yeah. And so it keeps us like in our place, so to speak. And that's why I think, I hope that makes sense to people, but
it does. It keeps you like in a box.
Yeah. And I think that can be really, really detrimental. And so I guess to go back to the relationship piece, right? And what we were talking about before, when you're entering into conversations with people, you shouldn't expect them to be perfect because you're not perfect either, and I think
talk about it.
I think that is, it's so important to not expect perfect from people, but just to expect conversation from people, and
that's good.
And not think about, okay, what are they going to do for me in the future? What can I get out of them in the future? But really think about, what can we connect on right now in this moment, and you just never know where that may lead.
Yeah. Your brand deserves more than just a selfie. It deserves a vision captured perfectly. Hi, I'm Danielle J. Martin, and I'm here to help you create a visual identity that creates a lasting impression. So whether you're launching a business or you're enhancing your presence or you're rebranding, your photos are your first impression. So our brand photo shoots aren't just for you to take pretty pictures, but they're for you to tell your story, build trust, and connect with your audience in a whole different way. So if you're ready to elevate your brand that creates a lasting impression, go ahead and click that link down below. So this is really good. So I want to come back to the difference between marketing and PR because I really want people to truly understand like the opportunity that they have that they may not even be aware of, right? So like let's talk about like the underrated aspects of PR and how like sometimes like when you get into the weeds of like PR, some people get confused with marketing and social media and like how to go about that. So like let's talk about that a little bit. Like what are the underrated aspects of PR?
Absolutely. And my mind's really going a couple of different directions asking that question. I mean, one, I think about the tools of public relations. And I do think to take it back to kind of why people may confuse the two, some of the tools of PR and marketing are very similar or even the same.
Right.
You know, the example that really comes to mind is social media. You know, that can be used for strategic marketing when you're doing sponsored content and ad placement and stuff like that through social media, influencer campaigns, that kind of thing. But then it can also be used for public relations. And this ties directly to the brand building that you do too. Because when I think of, let's just take Facebook, for instance, it's a household name at this point, right? Public relations can also take the form of creating a Facebook page for your business and making sure you're posting consistently, but not necessarily about your product, posting about your identity as an organization. And maybe it's employee profiles, who works for you, if you do that cool volunteer engagement opportunity or some collaborative partnership in the community, like making sure it's out there and people are aware of it, and really starting to build just a positive buzz around your business that can really go a long way. So I feel like there's kind of that component when it comes to the difference and why people can get so tripped up on that difference. When it comes to kind of underrated aspects of PR, I do think about some of those more kind of like intangible things. I mean, one of them being, I don't think people realize how much time and effort it takes to build trust with the types of people, with true storytellers, across your community, beyond your community. And so that's the value of really working with a PR agency is because they are constantly building that trust with people in the community or beyond that you may need to get your story in front of, And so I think just the time and effort that goes into that is maybe an underrated aspect of PR.
For sure.
Because it's so behind the scenes, I mean, when I mean, even me getting to know journalists and getting to know, really who likes to tell what type of story. And so if I'm communicating about a business thing, maybe I reach out to this person, and not that person, know? And so it's really nuanced. And another kind of underrated aspect, I would say, is like the finesse it takes to inspire someone to tell a story.
Wow, that's good.
And honestly, it's not going back to perfectionism. Like I am not perfect at this, but like I feel like I'm constantly kind of growing in that space and getting a feel for how to strategically communicate, to really, encourage someone else to say, I'm working with this client. They're doing this really impactful thing. They're someone you want to know. And here's why I think this would be a cool story for you to tell. And really inspiring them to tell that story in a way that feels authentic to them too. Because like at the end of the day, like, and I feel like people don't understand this, but like when it comes to earned media, that journalist could say no. They could flat out say no.
They don't always say yes to stories.
They don't always say yes to stories.
And this is why it's important to like literally know what story you're telling.
Right. And I mean, like, this is something I've said before, and I feel like it doesn't need to be said, but like journalists are people too.
No, seriously.
Like seriously.
You can't be attacking them, emailing them, like, why did you come to my story?
Journalists are people too. Like
or my event.
They bring so much to the world. They give they bring so much value to their work, and they want to do a good job. They 100%. Want to tell stories effectively. They're also very busy, like, I mean, a lot goes on in Topeka and from day to day, and there are going to be things that don't get covered. There are going to be things that do get the limelight. And they're balancing all of that, and so the finesse it takes to kind of inject yourself and just say, hey, I have this really cool thing going on. Here's why I think you should talk about it or cover it in some way. That's really powerful. And I think very underrated.
Would you say that like, so as you're talking, I'm thinking about how, so PR is all about like telling your story, getting it out there, being consistent. And so I do see why people may confuse like branding and PR, you know, a little bit. But I always tell people like what I'm really more so like from my business specifically is focused more around like the strategic part of like your brand identity. Because like you said, some people don't know who they are. And so it's like in order to tell your story, you have to know who you are and what story you want to tell. Because there's always like different like depths and parts of you, which I think it's beautiful to put like all different aspects. But I think so people can also understand the difference between branding and PR, like they definitely go hand in hand, but it's like you have to identify like those values and everything. Like that's more so like the lane I'm in, and like you're in the space of like getting your story out there, getting it around the world, right? And you know, like that's why like just like the identity piece is important, because you're more so like, we have to tell your story. We have to know, you know, why you're telling the story. Why is it important? Why should this agency or this news outlet come cover your story? Right. And so like, what are some other aspects around the value of PR that business owners and entrepreneurs need to know to understand why it's needed for their business?
Well, and you've really got me thinking too about like, how do we really make clear for folks the difference between branding and PR too? And, you know, you are about like really crafting that identity, making sure that brand is intact. PR is about giving that brand a voice to a certain extent.
That's good. Yeah.
So we're saying, okay, you've got this amazing personality.
Yeah.
You know, you've got this incredible thing going.
That's good.
Let's put a voice on it, you know, and try to get the message out that way.
Yeah.
So
and you're really good with words. Like, let's also even like put that out there. Like India has a way of like, just, I remember when we were like planning for the conference, I was like, I don't really know how to say this. Like, how do I put this into words? And you're like, well, you just say like, we help women connect, you know, make them feel good about themselves. Like you just said it more like just easy, like very like efficient, very smooth.
Thank you.
And I think that's another beautiful thing about like your business is like, you know how to say things in a better way that people aren't like thinking about, you know?
That's so funny. And honestly,
I just love
I'm
it.
thinking of a very recent example too, where someone had said something to me about wanting to kind of like be in the background on this project. And then the other person involved kind of stepped into the room and I had to be like, you know, so-and-so actually wants to take a step back. And in the moment, you know, trying to figure out how to like make them understand why they wanted to take a step back. I was like, they want to center you more, you know? And so like
yes,
I don't know. It's sometimes just like the flip of a phrase makes all the difference.
100%.
I don't think it's out of like manipulation or anything like that. Like I hope it's not perceived like that.
No.
But it's really just about like making people feel something, you know, at the end of the day.
With your words.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I that's honestly why I have so much respect for like authors, writers, journalists, because it takes an enormous amount of creativity and tact and nuance to be able to like put the right words together in a way that makes people feel something.
Yeah.
And that's really what I'm trying to do, I think, with public relations. When it comes to kind of proving the value of PR, I know that was part of your question too. I know marketing kind of is seen as this thing that has more immediate returns, right? And it's very, you know, data oriented, metric driven. You know, PR does have some metrics behind it that you can use to kind of prove the value. When it comes to, I mean, even just like, you know, these are the stories that we were able to capture, we were able to get coverage on. Just, you know, the earned media placement, you can always track that. And track the reach of those stories too, you know, and those are usually based on a publication or outlet circulation. So you just kind of get a feel for, okay, their circulation is this. It's probably, you know, the reach of our story probably had about this many eyes on it, that kind of thing. So you can kind of measure the value in that way, and even put, you know, a kind of dollar amount on it by, you know, there are some algorithms out there that will calculate like what that earned media would have, how much it would have cost if it was an ad to spend, you know? And so it kind of helps you put like a dollar amount on something that was very inexpensive. But to say like, if you had put advertisements out there and actually placed those strategically, it would have cost you this much. And you got that many eyeballs on it for something that was very low cost, you know? And so that's kind of the more, I guess, metric oriented value that you can prove.
That's good.
I think when you're talking to a client that like, or when I'm talking to a client that doesn't really understand public relations and is trying to get a feel for the value. I think that's kind of a little bit different.
Right.
And I think in that case, like, you honestly, to a certain extent, I think you have to point to brands that do it well and show them, like, this is what it looks like.
That's good.
When you are doing PR well, like, and think about what you know about that organization.
Yeah.
That's the value.
Yeah,
that's
good.
The one coming to mind right now, and it's probably because, like, they had the Super Bowl commercials and they've been popping up on social media and stuff, but like Nike, right? Like, and their whole, like, women's empowerment sort of campaign right now. God, and like investing in her. Like, I love those types of messages.
Yes, same here.
It
stuck out to you so much to where it became a glue. Like, it became a part of your memory.
Yes. Right? Like, nothing else.
100%. And it's like, how can you become like an attractive, like, how can you become a magnet?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, like, I've heard that time and time again, like, for my virtual mentors, it's like, create a brand that is a magnetic brand that, like, when people see you or when they think about a specific niche or something like food or clothing or, candles, it's like your business pops up, right? It's like, you would think when people think about PR, they're thinking about Local Lens.
I hope so.
Right? And like, when you think about branding, authentic media, right? So it's like, how can you, like, position yourself and I think that's also too why, honestly, I always tell people, like, you have to find, like, your unique value proposition. Like, it's something that, like, we talk about in business, like, when it comes to, like, creating a business plan. But I truly believe that, like, there's power behind, like, unique value proposition. Like, you have to figure out what makes you, like, different.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And even when I think of, like, the Nike campaigns and stuff going on, there's a certain level of product marketing in that because, those athletes are all wearing Nike gear, right, at the end of the day. But those are also kind of PR oriented because they're more storytelling focused. They are kind of trying to get a message across about values, right? So they're communicating the brand and not, even though those athletes are wearing the products, they're not saying buy this product. They're saying this is who we are. And
that
this is what we're
so
about.
Good.
Oh
my God. Okay. That is so good.
And that's why it can be confusing because there are all those different elements in that one ad.
Oh my God. Yes. Like, lights are going off right now. Oh my gosh. My mind is blown. What the heck?
Yeah.
Yes. It's like what we're basically in right now. Like, the way that Apple has literally hypnotized us, right? Like, if you were to go that deep, it's like, we are glued to the phone.
Well, and I even think of, like, I have an iPhone, but I don't have a Mac laptop.
Okay.
But the laptop I do have is by another brand. And you can tell their style mimics a Mac. Like, you know what I mean?
Wow.
To a certain extent. Because, like, Apple is just known for, like, the cleanliness, the fine lines, like,
100%.
That black and silver sort of, pairing. So,
oh my God, that's so good.
It's interesting that when you do something well, when your brand is known for certain things, like, other people will try to
mimic it
to a certain extent, and
all
we
the time.
Hear that, like,
the best form of, like, flattery.
It's a form of flattery, right?
Yeah,
but
100%.
Yeah, but it's so
crazy.
interesting because, like, and to tie it back to your question too about, like, proving value, like, think about those organizations that are doing it really well and that immediately come to mind when you think of someone who has a really good reputation, and I say someone, but I really mean some business, right?
Yeah, that's so good.
Because they go hand in hand. And so, think about the organizations doing it well. Think about what you get out of every sort of interaction, quote unquote, with them, whether that be consuming something about them via television or, on your phone or something else. And I guess to a certain extent, like, I'm not saying copy them, but, like, think about what they're doing and think about how you could do something similar that is true to your brand, and what voice are you going to give it in the process, just to tie it, like, the branding and the PR together.
This is really good. And I really hope that people here that have heard, what you've said can truly take away why PR is important for your business. understanding the true difference between marketing and branding and PR. But as we close out, I do want people to understand more of who you are. So this is like your origin story moment. And because I can think back to the moment, like, you literally, like, y'all, this girl, literally, we were in Arizona and
tell them the story.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So like really quickly, like we were in Arizona, we were going to a women's conference. And I think India and I were both in a very like similar, like just like mental transition of like wanting more in our life, but we didn't know like where we could get that
can I
energy.
Stop you real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I wore a necklace today and it's from my friend Claire.
Yeah.
And it says made for more. How sweet is that?
That is adorable.
I'm about to cry just thinking of it. But shout out to Claire.
Yes, that is so sweet.
Yeah. But I mean, it goes to like directly what you're saying about like, we had this feeling that like, there's something else. Like there's something beyond where we are now that we are called to do.
Yes. I'm just in awe, like, of India, like so in awe of you, because it's just crazy because you just never know when like a conversation or like an experience can really like take someone into a different direction that you never thought. And like, not in a bad way, like in a very like, oh, like she was serious. So like we went to this women's conference in Arizona and Powerhouse Women, it was like the most phenomenal thing. If you haven't been,
so incredible.
Please go check it out. And so they were all about like, you know, entrepreneurship and what it's like to like the whole journey of entrepreneurship, being in business and what it's like. And, you know, there's all sorts of different types of women that go there, like different types of women, all different walks of life.
Some who were like much further along in their business
way
journeys,
further.
Some like us who were like
just started, had ideas.
I had ideas, but like hadn't really launched anything,
right? Like I was like sort of kind of in my business, but like not really in it.
You were even like a step ahead.
Me,
girl, to a certain extent,
I don't know where I was,
but I was literally just like, I put some thoughts to paper, but like,
but she was still like
solidified.
Yeah. She was like in her corporate job.
Yeah,
I mean, we both were, but like, I think India was just like, I have a business idea, you know? And so I think by the end of the weekend, long story short, she was like, I think I'm like seriously going to quit my job. And I was like, what?
Sorry, GTP.
I was like, what? I was like, what? I said, are you sure? Like, girl, we're just here to get motivated. Like,
I was like, what did I do?
I know. I'm like, I did not. This was not the whole point for you to come quit your job. Okay. But I just was so like in shock. Cause like, I never thought you were so serious until like you said it. But like, you know, when you really believe someone and they like have this stern look.
Yes.
Like India, you had this look.
Inside.
Yes. And I'm like, this girl is serious. She about to quit her job.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, at that point, like it had kind of been months in the making.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, gosh, when I think to a year ago, like so much has happened in the past year.
I know.
And I guess I can kind of take people through the timeline. Like, back in probably March or April of last year, I finally started like kind of typing down some ideas, putting some thoughts to paper, that kind of thing. But really just like sat on it for a few months. And, you know, there were nights where I literally couldn't sleep because I felt like I was supposed to be stepping into something else, you know, to a certain extent. Didn't quite know what that was yet, even though I had put some thoughts to paper. And I think honestly it was because I wasn't sure at that time whether I trusted myself to follow through and to really do the thing.
Yeah.
You know, and to step out in that way and be seen in that way.
Yeah.
And feel like I was worthy of like owning my own business.
Right.
Like that feels so big to a certain extent. And it is big, right?
Yeah.
And so it really took some time. I mean, months for me to get to a point where I was like, no, I can do this, you know?
Yeah.
And gosh, I hope I don't cry on this podcast.
No, please.
but that
be authentic.
Weekend, that weekend was such a turning point because it really was me just like waking up to the fact that like, I need to stop playing small. Like I need to stop thinking that I can't do this. Otherwise I never will. Literally about to tear up. So it really was such a turning point to me saying like, no, this is for me. Like I can do this. And it was such a blessing to like have you there to encourage me through that. And to just know that like, I am meant for something more and something greater and like something that like is within my control, you know? Yeah. Now we're both crying.
I know. Oh, it's okay.
I cry way more than people realize.
I know. But I'm so proud of you. And I wanted to just sit in this moment because, I mean, I know we laughed about it, but it's like, yeah, just being a part of that, like, I'm so honored because I think I told you at lunch the other day, I said, wow, Indy, I didn't know how deep you felt what you felt until like your action showed that like, you were like, no, I need something different. And I just keep thinking about like, I wanted you to share this story. And I'm like, we can sit here and we could talk about all the tactics, but your story is so important because you could help someone that may feel that way.
Yeah.
That's like, I know I'm meant for something more.
Yeah.
So like, if you could like share what gave you the courage to like finally take that step to say, you know what, I don't know what the other side looks like, but I believe in myself so much that this is going to work.
Yeah. We are really getting authentic today, aren't we? Danielle pulls it out of you
all the time.
No, that's so good. I think we often want to point to like one moment in time that was like, that was a turning point for me. Like that was when everything changed. But I don't know that was the case for me to a certain extent. You know, I think over the years I had just like built up these ideas in my head that like, I wasn't meant for that. I wasn't worthy of that. You know, that wasn't for me. And, you know, it's no one else's fault. It was just, you know, these messages that I had kind of consumed from so many different sources over the years saying that like, I'm not supposed to be in that space, you know? And so after a while, like, you know, I've really put a greater emphasis on journaling and stuff just because, I mean, being a writer, like there's something so powerful about like just putting your thoughts to paper and really writing out your feelings and the depth of them, you know? And so I do remember this one like journaling session I had where I was really getting deep with myself and real with myself about like, where did this idea come from that like, I can't do this or that I'm not worthy of this? And somehow I like got onto the concept of control and was really reflecting and saying or thinking like, I have somehow formed the idea that like, I am not in control of my own life. And that was manifesting itself in a way that like I was allowing other people to dictate my days, you know, and control, you know, my schedule for me. You know, I even think about like getting into journalism, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm sure
oh my God, the long hours. Like you don't work 8 to 5, you work 24/7. Okay.
Right. You do. And it's
oh my God.
You know, we all get into it with a heart of service, right? It's all about the community and making sure your neighbors are informed because I truly believe that a more informed public is a more engaged public, you know? So I was so into community journalism, but when I think about, you know, why I kind of got into that field, and maybe not even why, but just like how I got there, I think to a certain extent, like it was an element of like, well, I'm here to serve. And that means like, it's not about me, you know, and and I don't have control over this. Like I follow the story, I go where it leads kind of thing. Like, you know, my day is dictated by what needs to happen, like while I'm on the clock kind of thing. And that definitely kind of followed me over the years, you know, as I kind of got into my career and that kind of thing. And I found myself saying yes to things that I didn't really want to say yes to and stuff like that, just because it felt like it was out of my hands. It was out of my control, you know? And so I really got to sitting with this concept and where that came from. And, you know, I realized that like I've formed this really deep rooted idea that I'm not in control of my own destiny. And to a certain extent, like starting this business is a total reclamation of that. I'm gonna cry again. But it truly is like, it's about me saying like, no, I am in control of my own destiny and I can do this.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm worthy of the type of peace that can bring. And I deserve to follow my calling. And like, now I'm just literally recounting like affirmations.
Yeah.
I had to like, So in journaling, you know, I had kind of stumbled upon these ideas of like, you know, what was behind that like lack of control. And so at the end of this journal entry, like really, I wrote down, I think it was 6 affirmations that I was like, okay, I need to keep repeating these to myself until I really feel them.
Yeah.
And so I did, and I literally wrote them on my bathroom mirror.
And they're so beautiful. Oh my gosh. Like,
I was like, I don't even know if I could say them right now. I'm probably not going to make it through without crying.
Oh my gosh.
But no, they were, I'm in control of my own destiny. I have an opportunity to do things differently. I am worthy of inner peace. I deserve to follow my calling. I can achieve beautiful, bountiful things.
Yeah.
And I am chosen for a journey such as this. And I just had to like literally repeat those to myself until I believed them. Because I think sometimes like we can know things logically and not truly feel it in our bones, like in our nervous system, you know?
Wow.
And until we do, like, we're not going to be able to take that next step. And so it was really such a process. And literally like, this is not something that happened over the course of years. Like this is over the last like 3 to 6 months, you know, where I'm like really digging deep, doing this inner work and trying to like pull these old ideas out of myself and really like examine where they came from and try to like flip the script for myself because, you know, I do have a certain amount of control over what I do, how I spend my days. I do believe, and I heard someone say this on a podcast once, that like the way we spend our minutes are the way we spend our decades.
100%.
And so I want to spend my minutes wisely, and I want to spend them in a way that is furthering a vision for the world that I think is full of goodness and love. And so like, that's where all this comes from.
Wow.
We just got real deep.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
I am. And I think that I don't think you realize the amount of lives that you're about to impact. I don't know why I'm getting emotional.
I was going to say, the tears are streaming.
I know. I'm like, oh my God. But it's like, I mean, this is what this platform is about. Yeah. You know, it's like, it's to be educational, but it's to be authentic in the most beautiful way. Yeah. Because it's like, you didn't get here like just all willy-nilly. Like this road was very, you know, uneasy for you. And I think that's why I wanted you to share that, because this wasn't like years in the making. Like this was like, you said there has to be a change. I'm going to make it. I'm going to take action and I'm going to stick to my word. Yeah. And how many times do we not stick to our word?
Right. And just like, you know, if we can't keep promises to ourselves, we can't keep promises to other people. Yeah. And so like to a certain extent, this is kind of about keeping a promise to myself, you know?
I feel exposed. I'm just like, oh my God, this is for me. I'm just going to go back and watch it.
I don't know what my makeup looks
I'm like, this is just going to be for me. So, but thank you, friend.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing the space and like the platform to have these types of conversations.
100%. Too. Like, this is just the beginning. Okay. Like India's coming back. Okay. And, yeah, you're going to see us do some things in the works together. I'm super excited about, you know, the partnerships and the plans that we've talked about of wanting to do a lot of like just duo, just like workshops and, you know, collaboration together. And
we've even talked this evening about just like the, you know, how branding and PR fit so well together.
Oh my God,
and how you do have to have a brand in order to communicate strategically with PR. So,
and the benefit is that we're just friends, you know.
No, that's
I'm like, it's just so easy. Like, it's just like, there's nothing like better than like working with someone you compliment with, and it's just like easy. Like it just fits.
And it's like, I trust you. I know you bring value like to every conversation and like project you work on. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to know more about India, all of her information is going to be in the description below. And yeah, if they want to work with you, we'll put all of your information there.
Perfect.
But I love you, friend.
I love you too. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for watching the Authentic Media Podcast YouTube. At Authentic Media Company, our mission is to help you develop an authentic brand so you can make the impact that you are called to make. If you got anything from today's episode, make sure you drop a comment down below. I'm interested to see what your takeaways are. And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel so you can be the first to know when we drop our newest episode. In the meantime, have a great day.